Today I'm Chris and you're Richard. I'm going to be Chris all day, and Richard will
stars in your eyes
probably change. We're going to, if we can, between questions, talk about wages and pricing and commissions. So it's going to be our main topic. So we want you to go away with some information that's going to help you.
We're going to share a lot of the stuff that we do ourselves, because although Chris has got his salon and my salon's sort of 25 minutes away, they share a lot of the same systems. They're very different in terms of their personality, but they share the same systems that kind of work for us. And we're going to share them. And very often when we hear things that other people are doing, we kind of have in our own mind sometimes we think that's not possible for us. We've got a whole story going on. And I think part of having business education is to give us the confidence to be able to make decisions that sometimes we're unsure about. Because we're looking at things and someone will give us advice, or you might hear something that says you should do this or you should do that. And then we question it, and we should question it. And then, but at the same time, if the information that's being shared is implemented in a position where it's working, then it has more credibility. Does that make sense? So we're sharing with you things today that are working for us. We'll go through some of the challenges that we're all having with lots of things that are going on at the moment. But part of the show in the video is to sort of say that very often we don't make those decisions which have a major impact on our success. In other words, sometimes we kind of stay small, or we don't increase prices, for example, because there's a whole fear thing going on. How do we overcome that fear? So that's some of the things that we're going to talk a lot about today, isn't it?
We touched on it as well as we was talking, that psychological things, psychology comes into it a lot, and as you heard in that video, you've got people who say, what holds you back? And somebody would say money or fear. And fear is one, but I don't think it's the whole thing, because once you get over the fear, it's education. And sometimes I think that we've got all the skills, all of us have got some sorts of skills which have made us get to where we are already. So we have got some great skills already. And I call it the Morecambe and Wise sort of scenario, is where we've got all these skills, but you're playing the right notes, but not necessarily all in the right order. And it's just a matter of being educated to be able to put them all in the right order, so all of a sudden the song plays itself.
It's a great opportunity for people to ask a question, because although we might have some answers, whenever you get a group of people together, especially salon owners, we can come up with the answer ourselves. Everyone's is sort of living in the same world, doing the same thing, and generally one of us would have been through that issue before and found a solution to that. So that's the beauty of kind of getting together. It isn't just the education. The education's one part of it, but it's the community thing. And I think salon owners were conditioned, I know I was, that you don't talk to other salon owners. They're the enemy. You know, you don't even look at each other in the warehouse. You kind of, don't do that. And actually, that's a kind of misconception that we're in it together. We're not. It's not us versus the other salon owner. It's the salon owners. We need to pull together now and work together as a professional industry. We've got a whole host of other people to kind of turn our angst on, but it's not fellow salon owners. We need to pull together, work together, and we'll strengthen the industry by doing that. So that's kind of a broad sort of description of the afternoon. But as I said, we bounce around quite a lot from subject to subject as something shows up, so it might not follow a kind of chronological order. We need to educate our people to understand that there's a cost to doing business. It's not all in the benefit of the employer anymore. The system has been changed. Everyone benefits, or even actually sometimes the employee benefits more than the owner now. And so part of this kind of, I suppose, development or personal development is about getting the team to understand that you can only pay out what comes in. We basically distribute the money, don't we? So whatever's left in your tills or in your bank accounts at the end of a week or a 4-week or a month period. You've got a set amount of money and we have to distribute it in a certain way and cover all those costs. The team understand that it isn't you that's paying them, the customer pays them. It's a really important psychological thing because unfortunately, again, the media doesn't really help with all of this, but nowadays it's seen that bosses are bad, employees are good. They're the downtrodden, and we as employers are all the bad people making billions of pounds. Anyone making £1 billion of profit at the moment? I know I'm not making £1 billion profit. I'm not Google. I'm not Facebook. None of those. And most of the businesses in this country, in fact, 96% of the businesses in this country turn over less than £1 million a year. It gives you an idea of scale that most of the businesses in the country are just small independents like you and us, who are just trying to make a living, generate something, and I suppose do a little bit better than most. But at the end of the day, we can only focus on what the customer brings in. And so one of the problems at the moment is if the consumer and frequency of visit has dropped across the country generally, and so sometimes the actual turnover is dropping, yet the prices are going up, or the costs are going up, if that makes sense. And so the finances or the economics of the business has become, as Chris said years ago, it was relatively easy, to be fair. It was a lot. We didn't realise it at the time, but running a salon 10 years ago, 15 years ago, was relatively easy when I look back.
You're getting old. It's about 20 years ago.
It's probably 20 years ago.
Yeah.
All right. It was, when you look at it now, you think, oh God, I wish I could get back to them days. But even when back in those days, you were thinking, well, it was a nightmare. But on reflection, it's just become much, much harder. But what we've had to do is really become much more knowledgeable around the finances. We can't delegate that off to a bookkeeper or an accountant now because we lose control, and we have to be in control of the numbers within our own salon, because we can then control it. It's one of the things that's very much sort of backbone of Winning Ways, is to sort of say, right, it's important that we understand the numbers. We haven't got to be accountants, that's not what it's about. But the most important thing around numbers is not getting the numbers, it's what? Knowing what to do with them. What call to action. The economics only give you it's when you look at whether it's a spreadsheet or an email that comes through, the question is what action do I need to do based on that information? What's the lever to pull? To get at the result and move the business in a certain way that will change that number for me and improve that number. And sometimes we don't know, so what we end up doing is pulling all these different levers. We'll do some discount, we'll do this, and we're just trying to. And in doing so, you just think, well, actually, it's that one. Pull that one, and the things change. And so that's why I think understanding that is key. We have to be so careful with language. We underestimate how powerful language is. When we talk about basic, it's not a very motivating word, is it? It's basic.
It's minimum.
It's just...
It's like okay.
It's okay.
How's your relationship? Okay.
Yeah. How's your life? Well, basic, to be fair. It's not a very motivating word, and so we have to be careful around language. And the second problem with this is these totals are too low. So, for example, it's Saturday afternoon, you shut at 4, and and you're not there, you're on holiday, and a client walks in an hour before the salon shuts and the stylist has got a gap. Would they stay and book that client in for 10%?
10% of a low price usually.
Yeah. It's not incentivised enough for them. Not really. I'd rather leave early. That's more important to me than doing the client. So it's when people have got choices, am I going to do that? Am I not going to do that? And that's why it's sort of setting the system up to kind of work when you're not there. So there's some form of that going on in most salons, whether it's beauty, nails, hair, whatever. But how it's packaged is important, and it's simple, which is the most important thing. We have what we call an either or system. In other words, you either get a certain amount, which could be basic. You have a basic salary. It could be minimum wage. You get that. So let's for the industry, let's say it is that. So let's say it's minimum wage, and then that's a percentage. And for us, we do 33% of services?
90%.
We charge the same, just for you to
We
be
haven't
clear.
got a tiered level.
We haven't
Ah.
got a different
Now
sliding
you've got-
pricing.
Your life.
With
your-
the junior, the graduates have. The graduates
Yeah,
charge
but
less
you'd
than the
expect.
stylists.
Well, you can start to see that all those issues that we have, that elephant in the room in our heads, you could solve that today. Possibly not today, but it will give you the start to change it. Because your life could change and your stylists' lives could change by introducing correctly a structured pricing. Because at the moment, you are holding some of the busy ones back. And my question would be, how busy do you want them to be as a percentage?
Everybody 80, I'd say. Minimum.
If they're 80% busy, they are knocking on the door for promotion to charge more. And that's not your opinion, that's the client's opinion. I go to her because she's good. Well, you're now starting to look that they need to be promoted to a higher price. Your clients are telling them by their feet, they're using her. That's what you go by, not by what the clients say, but by the figures. And that's why Simon's figures need to be learned how to use them, because the answers are in there, not the clients. The clients will always tell you, oh, I can't afford that. Well, that's right, some of them, but they've got no alternative to go to someone else. And they'll go, yeah, but I want her. Oh, well, you're going to have to pay for her. Do you see the difference? What we're doing now is running a business. And it's changing our heads from an hairdresser to a business, and the people will love you for it.
We're saying that the industry as a whole, have to raise their prices, and we have to sort of separate ourselves from the black market. There's a black market in every town. There's a black market in my town. There's a black market here. I could buy a cheap haircut down the road here, couldn't I, Chris? There's always that element. I can't look at my business based on that model. I just can't, because there's a different model that we run. So I have to base it based on where the current economics are. The point I'm trying to make is that if we were to have to do this, and that's where we're moving towards, then what would we go back and do? We'd go back and work on these two things.
There's something in your mind that's thinking, yeah, I hear all that, but there has to be a but. Have you got a but in your mind that you would like an answer to a question at the moment? That a problem that you have and you still can't see past it? Have you got enough staff? Is recruiting staff easy enough? No, it's not. So you've got to. Staff is a sort of a general problem.
It's a worldwide problem.
It's a worldwide problem, but I've got to say that some of the problems are, again, we've been conditioned, and we're creating our own problems because we haven't changed with the times. And so we've got to learn a new way of relating to what I've just been talking about. So we have to have that circle and work on it. On this side, we have to have business knowledge. But this business knowledge isn't just for us. This business knowledge is for everybody who works within the business. They have to know how a business works. If you don't educate your team on how a business works, the chances are they will think this is easy and go and open up around the corner. And you'll wonder and scratch your head and think, why did they do that? Because I've lost all my people now. And it may be that they didn't know enough about business, because once you start to educate them on business, they start to realise how lucky I am to be in a place that charges the right, pays the right commissions, and the reason why they pay them commissions is because the business has to make money as well as them. And so they start to see it in a different way. But if you don't educate them, they only see it in one way. And when they go back home and all the rest of it, you've got them people at home with them. So, I wouldn't work there, they're not paying it. I know they're getting paid, they're charging this, they're making this amount of money. I'd tell you where, tell them on their bike, go and open up your... And they're influenced by them. Now, you'll never ever be able to influence them more than the people where they are at home. But at least you can start to educate. And I've got to say, Richard and myself, we do not lose people to opening up their own salons. We do not. In all the years that we've been going, I'm talking about less than one handful of fingers. It's what we call our client's journey. No longer can you rely on one circle, because that's where the others are going. What we need is all three circles. And I could be, within the client's journey, we also have another circle, which is I like, retail, which is a bonus, I think. Which at the moment, there's lots of people, it's a bit up in the air at the moment, but I think it's the future.
Yeah.
I like retail and I still think it's the future of our businesses.
Yeah.
But you can start to see that this is a stylist and a salon of the future.
So this question that we put is really important, and it says, are your prices making you money? The basis of the question says that sometimes we have prices within the salon that actually we lose money on. And one of the misconceptions is that as long as you're putting money in the till, it must be good.
If we looked at where the money, this is a pie chart, and this is where the money,
Salon's income.
salon's income over a week, over a year, whatever you like it to be. And what we look at is that how much goes into wages from the, so if you've taken a week's money, we've took the VAT off, whatever it is, and so we've got the net of the money. Where does most of the money go? Well, it's now 55%, and tell me if you think this is wrong, will go in wages. Would that be around about right? And then what we've got is around about 8 to 10%,
If you're lucky.
if you look at, of products that we used
Professional.
to produce the turnover. So that could be foils, colours, shampoos at the back, wash, cotton wool, all the stuff that it took to do the job, rates around about 8 to 10. I like to say 10 because it's easier to round it up as a calculation. And then you've got something like about 35%, 30, I'd say 30 to 35 better, as in fixed costs, rent, rates, insurance, everything else. And we've included laundry in that. So you've got there your fixed costs at 35%. Now, if we add up 55, you might have to help me, 10%, and let's say 30. I'll go for the lower one. We've got 5 there, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
He's not on the darts team.
I'm not, I tell you. So we've got something what we call profit. And on this example, we've got 5%. You imagine the costs of our wages go up any more, but we can't put our prices up. We can't, because we'll lose all our clients. You've lost your profit and you're working for nothing. What happens then is that your team start going, you have got no choice. It isn't us saying you've got to do it because you've got to have this, that and the other. We're saying it because £35 is the minimum you can charge. Minimum you can charge because of the costs and the way that the world is. Now, what's happened is bosses know that and they get into this belief, so they don't put the prices up, and then somebody goes, you know what, I'm going to work for myself. I'm going to work down the road, because I can't earn enough here. And that's why they leave. That's the truth of it, is that's why they leave. They look around and they think, there's got to be grass greener in this. And we've got to stop that. And the only way we can stop that is to start breaking down some of the beliefs that we've got. Because the goalposts have been changed, the rules have been moved. You know, rules have been moved and the goalposts changed.
We know what you mean.
But you can start to see why we've got to do it. We have no choice.
We know that when we talk about pricing and we talk about increasing people, we say put your prices up, even though we're doing it in a kind of like a false setting, it still brings out the same emotion. And what we start to think about is the employee or Mrs. Jones or Mrs. Smith. What we're saying is the prices have to go up as a whole for the industry. And the ways of doing it is by introducing tiered pricing. For your salon, you introduce tiered pricing. I don't even know your salon. I guarantee it would have an incredible increase in revenue. And it would only have a benefit to the team Would there be uncertainty at first with the team to get them on board with it? Yeah, definitely. Would they be fearful? Yeah, definitely. But part of that is because the industry stands still. If you've got a team, any business that's sitting still, or you've got people that are too comfortable in their comfort is the enemy of progress. If you look at it come in the column every day and it's the same clients, although that's easy, it's boring. And it's especially boring, not to us maybe as senior stylists, but it's really boring to young stylists. That's not what they want. They want variety, they want to do something different. They're not going to work a column the same way that I was trained to work a column. Clients every half an hour, 5 days a week, no lunch break, eating sandwiches with herring. I mean, that's what it was like, wasn't it? Yeah. There was a fun element to that, there was an energy to it. And you're going to get a young person from school now and say, oh, this is a great industry. What we're going to do is we're going to work your butt off every single day, no breaks, no lunch. And at the end, if you do 3 times basic, they're going to go, you're all right. I think Australia's looking a bit appealing. I mean, they're going to go, they've got choice, haven't they? They're not conditioned. That's what's coming. That's what's next. The kind of old way of working just doesn't work anymore. We have to look at how the hair's changed, and that's changed dramatically, hasn't it? Has it? Yeah. Changed dramatically. That is a game changer. Not choices that we've made. It's been change forced upon us, but we have to adapt to it.
The great things is, and it is the great things,
Yeah.
is that we've got the answers to it.
Yeah. Not easy.
It's just taken us time to move over to this circle because we haven't had to in the past. We've been conditioned in the past to be reliant on hair. We've started to work on our client's journey because most salons, to be honest, have got a fairly good client's journey. And that's one of the tools that we are pretty good at. But we don't have a strong business knowledge. And we have too many beliefs, and we've been conditioned for all these years, and now I honestly can sympathise with people, is because it's not easy to change over.
No. The key, and I think Simon mentioned it a few minutes ago, the key to any, and most important, one of the most, well, probably the most important figure in any salon is the average bill. What's the average client paying? Because people say, oh, I charge, in my salon, I'm the salon owner, I'm charging £75. And, it's a good price, that is £75. What's your average bill? Because that's a headline price, isn't it? What does the average client spend? When the ones that get a bit of a discount, or the ones that get this, or the lower price. And actually, I think the average bill in the industry currently is £34. That's the nationwide average bill. Now, what's scary about that is if the average bill is £34, what's that saying? For the salons who are charging hundreds, means that to balance out the average, there's lots of salons charging not enough. And for those services, then that's the problem. So what exactly are we talking about here?
Well, can you just write down the importance of the average bill? You need to write it down. Don't let your paperwork in front of you is there for a reason. You can't do these courses. Get used to when you come on courses like this. Write down you don't have to write down everything, but write down key things. And one of those key things is the power of the average bill. The average bill is everything. So cut and blow dry. So we have cut and blow dries.
Blow by.
Dries. It's a D. Smart, huh? Cut and blow dry. What tends to happen on our prices is that we sometimes have, as well, we have long hair and we have cut and blow. Is that correct? Does anybody have long and normal? Yep. We sometimes have wet cuts, and in some cases we do have dry cuts. Now, let's say the long hair cut and blow dry is probably the most expensive, or a redesign. Does that make sense? So what we're saying is the redesign, maybe long as well, is, let's say that it's
40.
60. I'm going to go right at the top. £60 for a long hair cut and finish, cut and blow dry. The cut and blow dry could be 50. We'll get rid of that because it's confusing us. The wet cut could be 40, and the dry cut could be 30. I've only used these as examples to give you an idea. Now, what's the average bill? You can start to see it's done by numbers. The numbers of people. So I'm a new client. I'm looking for a cut and blow dry. Do you want a redesign? No, just a cut and blow dry. Oh, you do a wet cut. I've been once. I think I only need a dry cut today. Do you start to see that the numbers then start to be down here? And before you know it, the average bill is starting to come out at about £36, but you charge 60. Most people as well within our salons, they'll do a long hair but won't charge it. They'll do a redesign and not charge it because they don't like to. And so the average bill keeps coming down and down and down. And so what we have to do is get rid of some of these. Depending on what market you're in, now I'm not talking about men's, but depending on what market, so the top of our market here, they charge loads of money. Let's say it's £100 for a cut and finish. Down the bottom, they charge £5 for a cut. What market are we in? What market are you trying to attract? So in my business, if you ask my staff, they would say, we're in this market, we're trying to get that market. And that's what we call the BMW market. So there's lots of them, high volume, but good profit. So we're looking to charge around about average bill of £50. So we have some top prices of £60 and we have some bottom prices of £30.
And colour prices.
But we're averaging round about 50 quid. That's what our market is. So when you start to look at our market taking this on board, we don't do dry cuts and we don't do wet cuts. We don't do long hair. We got rid of that and we put our prices of our cut and blow dries up to the long hair price. So if somebody comes in with long hair, we just do them because we're already pricing for them. If somebody comes in with a short hair, it's the same price. Because generally, it takes the same amount of time. Yeah. Now, if we want longer time, we have on the price list an extra time. So if you've got somebody who wants hair cut short, but is down here, I'm going to need to have an extra time, and that has a cost, depending on how much the stylist charges for every 15 minutes. But we only have, oh, and also we don't do redesigns. I want people changing all the time. I don't want to say, well, we've changed your parting over there, so we're going to charge you more. It's a grey area, that is. It's a bit embarrassing, you know. Is it a redesign or isn't it? So get rid of the redesigns, get rid of the long, get rid of the wet cuts, get rid of the dry cuts, get rid, all you need is a cut and finish, and an extra time. But your average bill has just gone up overnight. And that's how you get rid of, and that's
Foils,
how you
same.
that, the same as foils, the same as everything else. You have to, don't advertise dry cuts if you don't want them. Now, so we've got cut plus blow at the moment, and let's say we're charging, I don't know, 55 for that. You can see that your average bill has already gone up because it was 30s, 40s, 50s. Now, the chances are it's going to be 55 with the cuts. Same with the colours. But also, we get on to, we don't do senior citizens anymore, do we? OAPs? Yeah?
They're the ones with the money.
They're the ones with the bloody money, yeah. So, we don't do senior citizens. We don't, from the kids' point of view, we got under 16s, under 12s, under 5s.
Under the table.
Nobody wants to do them. They cost. You imagine how much does an under 12 and under 5 cost? So let's say if it's, I don't know, 15 quid. You take the VAT off that. you can't even cover your overheads. You're doing it for nothing. So, and what the old saying was, well, yeah, but kids have got families and the families all go. No, it don't work no more. That's not, Sainsbury's don't do that, do they? Because you're a kid, you get it cheaper. You know what I mean? You imagine that? So we can have we've got to be realistic. And what I say is, here's your pricing. And imagine you've got more than one price as well, because we're going to talk about structure pricing. And so these are your prices, whatever they may be. So it could be 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, and 55, let's say. And the kids, ours are under 17s now, because kids stay on school till 17, a bit later now. So ours is, under 17s, we do 20% off. But here's your prices. You don't have a kid's price. You've already got the prices. So you allow people to have... Now, the funny thing about this is, once you introduce 20% off for the under 17s, some of the under 17s still go. Just because we think that they're going to go here, they don't all go there. Some of them go with their parents, or they'll go on different, and they'll pay a lot of money for this because it's the market that you're after.
And also, by putting that price in, the child or the kid, whatever terminology you want to give them, you're giving them the full service. You're not giving them a kid's haircut, squeezing it in 15 minutes. They get treated properly. So what you're saying is only the child, but as opposed to kind of whiz it through quickly and it's done as a sort of quick, cheap service, you book it in normally, give them the right same amount of time as the client starts to experience that, as a child starts to experience. That's their expectation, isn't it? So when I go to the hairdressers, when I get to 18, 19 and I'm paying for myself, or, well, actually no, when I get to 30 and I'm paying for myself, then I'm used to going to, this is what I'm expecting, because this is what I had when I was younger. So they're not going to suddenly go to a salon where they're going to go, I want to get in and out really quickly. They're not looking there thinking, from when they were kids, they've always gone to the hairdressers, always had it shampooed, always had a blow dry, always had a consultation. That's their expectation. When they get to be adults, they're not going to suddenly change back to something cheap at home. They're not. It's a real problem. But part of that education, we'll talk about it in a minute, is to do with, it tends to be about percentage splits, doesn't it? That's how they sell it. So if you've got a stylist, and we'll talk about this in terms of the language that you use and the systems that we use, but you know, if we were talking about 3 times basic and then you get 10%, and 10% doesn't seem like a lot, so then someone says, well, we'll do 50-50, 60-40, 70-30. Then what happens is they go, whoa, 70% sounds like loads, or 60 or 50. When the average employed stylist now is getting 40% anyway. When you factor in holiday pay and you factor in national insurance contributions, the split in most salons that are employed staff is a 60-40 split. And on top of that, they get education, they get the benefit of you doing all that stuff for them. So it's how we package the being employed by us as. So then if someone comes in, and I've had stylists approached by the salons, and they'll say, what? And they'll say, oh, I've had a phone call, Rich, and I'm like, okay, what have they said? Oh, they've offered me 50%, but I know 50% of what, you know, that's what, and this, I'm talking about girls that you wouldn't normally would come up with that sort of question. That's because they understand that. Here, we charge a higher price, they charge a lower price, so you have to do more clients. You can do more clients, you get a higher split, but you're getting less money.
But what Richard's done is address the problem before it's a problem. It's too late once it's a problem, because it looks like you're on the back foot then. What they're going to give you 50% off, what? Well, it's too late. Yeah. It's going on deaf ears.
It's like you're selling, then you're having to sort of almost sell your business to them. So it's, you know, stay with us, we're great. But then what happens, and the most important part of that is, then the tail starts to wag the dog.
Explain that.
Effectively, where you're having to compromise on what you want for your business because you're appealing to the business is being run by the team. So in other words, if we're running our business then purely on emotion, on the fact that if they don't do something, they'll leave. You know, well, and then you kind of get this, and if you get a team that are like that, whoa, it's like You get the union rep, turns up. I need a word, Richard. All of us. And that, to be fair, there's an element of, I mean, I'm not dismissing it because in lots of ways, because you can't find staff, they have got an element of leverage, if you like. But if this is about culture, so if what you want to do is create a culture where people enjoy being at work, and so you have to have a salon that that meets all their needs, basically. And then what you're working on is the stuff that they want. One is included in is being in on things, decision making, the vision for the business. It's about having things in place, you know, awards, or whether it's about photos, or whether it's about doing fun stuff. Ultimately, they want to work somewhere where it's fun, not somewhere where it's fixated on the money. Most people, money isn't a major factor for most people once they've established what they would call a kind of a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. We kind of think that we're obsessed about money, and employers are obsessed about it. They're not. Once you've established the right levels, if that makes sense, you have to get away from the minimum wage. That can't be the kind of basis of a salary system, because even though it's going up and it's affecting us, no one's going to feel good if they're on minimum. Just the word has a negative connotation. Does that make sense? You have to get them beyond that, because what are you earning minimum wage? Now we're going to go, well, minimum wage is £8.50 now, so it's not what it used to be. But it's still minimum. It sort of says, I'm paying you as little as I can possibly get away with. That's the message that kind of comes across. We have to get them beyond that. And once you've got them beyond that, then things changes.
But you can't just up the wages.
No, you can't just up the wages to get past
the prices
that.
Because
you still have to be something in it for us. So it's understanding that. And that's why that's an important thing. But we don't lose them to rented chairs. But they've got a lot of people in their ear all the time, haven't they? I mean, you can hear it in their language that they speak and the comments they make at times, and you're like, you haven't thought that up. Who's told you that? Do you know what I mean? And then, well, I heard, you know, and you're like, come in, sit down. I need to explain this to you because you sound like you're a bit confused, and I don't want you to be confused. Let me explain how this works. So you come and sit in the office. Let me get the accounts, and then we'll show you how it all works. Oh, well, okay. Do they understand it? Probably not the first time you show it to them, but after a while they kind of go, I get that now. And it sort of has what we advocate, which is a transparent business. In other words, we share the information. There's an element of inclusivity and being part of things that they buy into. It's part of the culture. This doesn't happen overnight, by the way. So they come in for an appointment, kind of book in. We all do free consultations, don't we? And they come in and we sit down with them. We give them all our advice. And then you go, well, should we get you booked in? And they go, yeah, I'll get booked. When we're doing it, yeah, we'll do Wednesday. Because the client doesn't want to say, no. Yeah. I don't want the client booking in on the appointment, on the day she's come for the consultation. I want you to go away and think about it.
Ah, I see.
Because if she books, there's a chance that you won't see that client again. The client, you've gone through, let's say, a big colour change or colour correction or some sort of appointment like that, then she needs time to go, or he needs time to go away and think about what we're supposed to talk about. I'll say, go away, have a think about it. The client will get a quotation card with all the stuff written down on it. The stylist who's gone through it. We'd have taken a before photograph of the client, which has gone onto their file. And also, we would then have, in their gallery, they would have had a couple of images of what they wanted gone onto their file. We've created a little bit of work. We've done the skin test. We've done all that type of stuff. And then we'd say, and they say, oh, we want a book. We say, no, you need some time to think about it. Yeah. Because then, if they're going to phone back, if they want the appointment, they'll phone back.
And do you take a deposit then?
Yeah, most of the time. If it's a big appointment, within reason. Don't get me wrong, within reason. And we've had a little bit of negative feedback occasionally on that. And what you know. The reception team I taught to take and the team are designed to train. So going back to clients cancelling last minute, the client will cancel last minute if you've got to make it personal. So the stylists suffer if the client, the business suffers. Don't get me wrong, but the stylist suffers. They'll do something to stop the stylist being. They don't care about me, bloody salon owner. They don't care about me, really, or the business. But if that stylist says, If the client hasn't showed up once and it happens a second time, the stylist sits down and has the conversation with the client and say, I know there's been a couple of missed appointments. Now, do stylists want to do this? No, because they'd like to pass that on to somebody else. However, nothing's as more powerful of a stylist sitting down with that client they've got a relationship with and saying to that client, you left me with empty space. I could have fit another client in there. It affects my pay. I've lost that because you haven't shown up. Makes it personal.
I was going to say that it is a big issue, but I think that it's got bad in some salons because it wasn't managed very well, to be honest. Once you start managing clients, because it's only a certain amount of clients, very small percentage, but they repeat it. And so it feels as if it's a lot of clients that are not showing up. But when you actually analyse it, it's not. You have a look at some clients and they've got fantastic records where they've 100 visits and never missed one. And you think, wow, that's fantastic. Then you have a look at another, and I do look at them all the time, and you can have somebody who's visited 20 times in 5 years and has missed 7 appointments. It's the same people. So once you start managing it, the problem becomes less, and it's managed by the stylist, the salon owner, and reception. From a salon owner's point of view, I can see, and reception can see, how many times this person has missed appointments in the past. They can just put the sensor over it and it comes up. So you know that this may be a person. So if somebody's booked in 6 weeks' time or 5 weeks' time for a cut and colour and has missed a certain amount, if they have to be warned, and the way that the stylist warns them is says, oh, I've noticed that in the past you've missed a certain number of, and you know what they're like here. If you miss another one, you won't be able to book. There has to, but the stylist, I wouldn't put in a position that it's them.
I mean, I can do gents, but I'm predominantly a ladies' hairdresser. Okay. It's a different skill, and that's because I spent, I don't know, a few years just doing ladies' hair all day long. But I can cut a gents' hair. I can do a basic gents' haircut. I could skin fade to a certain degree, but it'd take me twice the amount of time that somebody who's doing it every day would take. There's no point in me doing it. It's not beneficial to me, and actually, it's not really beneficial to the client. So if someone comes in and says, "We can, I want one of those skin fades," I always say to the team, just don't bother doing it. Send them down the road. They'll get a better result. I don't want one of my stylists painfully watching someone producing a bit of work where I'm thinking, I'm losing the will to live. It's taken an hour. It looks crap. It's where you watch someone do something, and it's what they do. I mean, there's nothing more beautiful than watching someone who's skilled at something doing what they're trained to do. It's just a different market. So, going back to the price, everything we do is based on time. So, if that's the base point of a £60 haircut, then 15-minute increments up or down depending on what they have done. And if it's colour services, it's the same increments with a supplement for the amount of colour we use. It's a very simple process. So that's the starting point. It's not based on what's so-and-so charging, who's doing this, what deals are going on elsewhere. I can't look at it from that point of view. I have to look at it purely from that's what it costs to do that service in this salon, or there's no point doing it. And that came out of an exercise where a few years ago I sat down and priced out some of our colour services, and we would have been better off not doing the colour because we hadn't allocated enough money into the service to account for the cost of the product. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so it took us again probably about a year to correct some of those prices, because some of them had really dropped back, especially some of the long hair foil services, or where they were having sort of foils and then colour as well. It would have meant a £15 or £20 jump for some of them services. We did it over about 12, 18 months. We got to there eventually, but we just did it over an incremental time and just explained that to the client. And also what we do, if we're ever going to increase a service or change it, we try and see how can we add value to it. In other words, how can we change the experience for the client to make it, not that they're just paying more for the same thing, because everyone gets a bit annoyed having to pay more. How can I make it better so it changes for them? How do I package that so that if we're going to charge £15 more because I made a mistake, what can we do to add into that? So can we do something with the consultation that would change that? Can we change the application in a certain way so the client experiences something different? There's something we can add in so that although it's effectively the same service, it doesn't feel the same. That people will pay for something if they feel like getting more. They get resentment paying more for the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's about how we package what we do. Do we keep talking while you put the numbers up, Chris?
Yeah, go on. No. Yeah. What I'm doing here, and I've got, like I say, I've got them to give them out for you to take home. But you've got 30 clients, say an average week, you do 30 clients, and you've got an average bill, that's the VAT's already taken off it, of £30. So 30 clients at £30 is £900 a week. Times that by your 33% of your commission, it equals £7.42 an hour. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
Yeah. Now I'm going to jump a little bit more. So we'll go to 30 clients and an average bill of £35, which then you've got £1,050 times your 33% is £8.67 per hour. Now you can start to see very quickly in a £5. Now you take on board what we've just done is we've got rid of some of the low price services, some of the wet cuts, some of the dry cuts, some of the long hair, some of the kids' prices, and the average bill's gone up. It's not difficult to understand that we could easily bring up the average bill in a stylist over a week, over a 4-week period, where it starts to become astronomically better than what it was just by changing the services. Now you've got to take on board as well, first of all, we're not looking for any more clients. And first of all, we haven't really put the prices up yet. All we've done is taken out some of the low price services and got rid of that. We haven't touched the prices and really put them up yet. So you can start to see that the average bill, now if we can get the 30 clients on an average bill of £40, and once you start getting into this, it isn't difficult to see that that's actually possible. Then you've got a 1,200 times that by your 33%, and 1,200 ends up being £11.87. This is why you don't have to worry about the basics after a bit, because once you're on the 33% and you've got your pricing correct and you've got rid of some of the low price services, which brings down the average bill, you're into the £11, nearly £12 an hour. Now you're starting to rock and roll now. You know, we're going somewhere where for years we haven't been able to get off this basic. It's because what we had and what we were trying to service clients with was out of date and was wrong. So now that we've got rid of them, it's now let us run now, because like I said, we've got all the tools that we need, we just haven't got them in the right order. Now we've got rid of some of the stuff that's holding us back. Now, and it is possible as a salon, and this is what you're after. Now, my salon last week ran at £49 average bill. That's the whole of the salon. Richard's salon was running at £60.
62.
£62? That's the average of the salon. Now, the average, as we come into structured pricing, which I don't want to confuse everybody, but it depends on how many stylists you've got on their levels. So you could be, let's say that this is a £30 level, this is a 35, this is a 40, and this is a 45, as an example. Now you've got 2 people on at £45. We may not have anybody on 40. You might not. But you've still got the level there. You don't have to take the level out. You just haven't got anybody at that level at that particular time. You may have 3 people on there and you may have 2 people on there. Your average bill as a salon will be affected because you are
Bottom heavy.
With stylists. That's not a problem as long as you know. If you know, and we're working to get these graduates up on the next level, we're now looking at these people on here and seeing how busy they are. Now this one person's working at 90%, busy. She can go to there. She can go to there tomorrow. If she's 90% busy, bloody hell, she can go to there. Now she's charging £40, so her wages are going up. She's happy. You know. She's happy because she's going up.
She can't see anything because she's got no eyes.
These people,
She's doing a bad haircut.
Yeah.
She's blind.
they're wondering, what have I got to do to get to there? Because now she keeps going on about how much she's earning.
But what happens is sometimes, sorry to interrupt you, Chris, is that we kind of go, well, but how? I don't want, want a happy team. So how are they going to feel if she gets promoted? This is where we get the emotion comes back into it. She's working hard. She's doing something, or he's doing something right. They've earned the right to go to the next level.
This stylist and this stylist have seen this person going there. For the first time, they see they've got a vision of where they're going. It's the greatest thing in the world to know where you're going. It's when you can't see anything to aim for, to work towards, that gets rid of people's energy, enthusiasm. You know, when you've got young people and they say, oh, they've got no enthusiasm, because sometimes they can't see where they're going. This structure and system is designed to motivate everybody.
Yeah.
So first of all, you have to take on board that this isn't over a week. And I may bring down upstairs, I haven't brought one down with me,
Booklet.
but a booklet. It's the stylist booklets. They've all got their own booklets, so they keep their own figures, so they can see where they're going. And in Salon Concept, you
Got the figures.
churn out the figures as well, so it's easy for them to fill out their books.
But there's a physical thing, just going while Chris is writing
Yeah, carry on.
that down, there's a physical thing where you can get it's where you get a computer printout. We have computer printouts as well currently. And they can look at that. It's like that, isn't it? So they get a printout, it goes on the wall, and they can walk up to that and look at it and then move on. They have to physically transfer the information off that onto a tracker book. There's something that makes the kind of buy into that, because even if they're not having a good week, they have to transfer the figures in. They get there's something quite physical in terms of it's a bit like goal setting. If you have a goal setting, if you write goals down, then you're more likely to reach them because there's a physical, tangible kind of physical thing we're doing that. Just looking at something, oh, I've got that goal, but I haven't really committed to it, then it's not quite the same. So transferring the information from a computer printout or a report into a booklet or onto a tracking sheet is important.
So what we're looking at is that the amount of time they've got to hit their target, these are 4-week periods. So each column is a 4-week. They're not monthly, they're 4-weekly. The reason why they're not monthly is because some months you get 5 weeks. And so when you're looking over a year of their figures, it looks like, oh, I did well that month, or I did that. Well, it wasn't, because there was 5 weeks in that month. So everything is done on 4 weeks. So a 4-week period, in here, we're looking for busy. We want to be 75 to 80%, what Simon would say, utilisation. And it is utilisation, but I call it, how busy are you?
Actually, that's a better word.
Yeah,
Well, it's a salon stylist type of word. If I was a stylist, how busy am I?
Yeah, it's
Utilisation,
yeah.
it's a business word. It's
Yeah.
not my language.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So how busy are you? It's 75 to 80% busy I want to achieve. Now, I want to achieve that in this 4-week period, this 4-week period, this week, and this 4-week period. That's my goal. I need to be,
No, the first 3 and then you tick off the end.
I need to be that busy in those 3 periods. So that's
Okay.
3 months, more or
Yeah.
less, if you know what I mean. Is that okay, guys?
Yeah.
Still with me? Yep. The reason why we're looking for 3 periods, it's not a fluke. You're not 80% busy one, and then all of a sudden you're a holiday there, say, and then you're 80% busy there, and you're looking for a promotion. So you need to be 3 periods of 75 to 80% busy. The next one is average bill. It comes back up again. Why is the average bill so important for a stylist? The average bill is important for a stylist because it tells you a lot, an average bill on a particular stylist. It will tell you how much they're doing, as in cuts, colours, blow dries, low price services. So your cut and finish average bill, so let's say that they're charging, let's say for instance this stylist is charging £50 for a cut and finish. That's on the price list. Your average bill, remembered, is the average bill is with the VAT taken off. You can't have an average bill with the VAT on, because that's not how it works. So your average bill, you're looking for the same price or above of your cut and finish price,
On the price list.
which is on the price list. Does that make sense, guys? So let me say that again. Your average bill, you're looking for the same or above of your reshaped price, which is on the price list.
So what's the VAT off of 50 quid then if we're charging 50 quid?
Well,
Well, that's ex-VAT, is it that 50 quid?
That's ex-VAT.
No.
This is on the price list,
Yeah.
but your average bill will be ex-VAT. Now, the reason why is because you want to do cuts, colours, that will take your average bill. For instance, not last week, the week before, I had a girl who charges £60 and her average bill was 80.
I had a girl last week who charges 57 and her average bill last week was 98.
Well, I had one on 40 and her average bill was 2,000. I'm only joking. It was very good. It was very good. I wish I hadn't said that. I've lost my track now. Now, but you can start to see that the average bill tells you a lot about that that stylist's column, because she's doing a nice array of cuts, colours. She's not. Now, if it was a low average bill, you'd have a look at her column and you'd talk to her and say, "Why do you think your average bill's so low?" And she said, "Well, I'm not that confident in colour." So we know now that we need to focus on the colour, and it might be knowledge, it might be just confidence, it might be whatever, but we need to focus on that. So we're looking for a £50 plus average bill. And again,
3 periods.
same amount of periods, 3 periods, because it tells you a lot about what they're doing.
Basically sort of says that you're checking that they're not just busy with low-end services.
We're not just a busy fool. We're making money here. So then we've got requests. Now this is where it becomes important that you've got a receptionist or whoever's booking the appointments doesn't just go into default mode and, oh, it's a request, and you've got 100% requests. You've got to put the information into the system correct, otherwise you just get rubbish out. So it's very important because their promotion is dictated by one of these. So requests, you're looking for 75, Richard?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, 75 or above, percentage-wise. It's the same as how busy you are. So you're looking for requests because what that's telling you is that the clients love this person. They love what she does or he does. So again, same amount of periods. And then we've got something what is connected with, and this might not apply to you, but it does apply to some salons, it applies to mine, is what we call a care factor. And I notice we have a care factor in the salon success things. Yeah. So the care factor in my salon has to be a certain amount. Now, and I'll give you an example of what a care factor is. If you do 10 clients and 5 of them buy retail, doesn't matter how much, they can all buy 1 product each or 1,000 products each. You have got 5 out of the 10 means that you've got a 50% care factor. Does that make sense, guys? So 10 clients, 5 of them buy retail, you've got a 50% care factor. That goes into whatever level they're at. My levels, they have different levels of care factor, what they have to achieve. So say this particular person of 50 has to achieve, let's say, something like a 25% care factor. And they've achieved it, and that means that they're talking to their clients about retail and about how to look after their hair at home, rather than what you're doing tonight and what did you watch the telly last night and what about Love Island and all those type of things. We don't want them to do that, so we need them to focus on this, and that does that. Once they've achieved this, you may want to add a few more things in, but that's totally up to you.
If a salon isn't busy or a individual stylist isn't busy, it's going to be either that or a combination of both. This is the simplicity of it. So but you can, both of these are areas you can work on. You know it's not working because the numbers are telling you, first and foremost. It's either what they're doing or the delivery of the client journey in terms of how it's packaged. And so you go back and you look at that, and as Chris said, you can identify, yeah, service is great, no problem, delivering a great service. The client journey, 90% of it was good, 10% was wrong. In other words, there was some work to do here. But you can go back and work on these. And to be honest with you, salons, well, we never stop working on these two things. They're never a complete job. This is never a job that you've trained them and that stops. This is every week, every day something's going on in my salon towards help, either individually with a stylist or with the group collectively. They'll drop back to their own standard. They'll drop back to their own standard, and most of that time isn't the standard that we're setting for them. We have to constantly work on that. They need constantly that little bit of pressure behind them to make them work. You have to have minimum standards. So if we're talking about where, yeah, we're after promotion, but there's also a minimum you've got to hit to be somewhere. You know, so there's retail set for you in terms of minimum. But if there's someone started to drop in their utilisation or busyness was suddenly going down, or there was other elements of their performance was going down, you can tell by the numbers generally. I mean, if you're physically in the salon, you can see it, but the numbers will tell you whether someone's performing or not. If they start to, then you've got to nip that in the bud. A business is only as strong as its weakest link.